Welcome, everybody, to the return of the Fellow Foxes podcast. Welcome. It's been a while. Been going through some things. Had some health issues and scares recently. But we are back, and Leicester City are still back. I mean, they've been back, but it seems like they're more back than they have been in a long time. So we are going to get into Leicester City and the awesome performance that they put in at home against Sunderland. Right now we're just going to check the lineup here. Let's take a quick look. Alrighty. Now if we look here, we're going to see that Sunderland lined up I guess this is a 4-1-4-1 as it's put on here. Couple players that we knew about already going into the game. Joe Bellingham obviously was a big one to look out for. He's definitely the name brand of the team. Also Jack Clark, obviously, is the leading scorer in the championship this season. There was definitely two that were on the radar of Leicester fans as they were gearing up for this match. And I got to say that, you know, I wasn't very familiar with Sunderland. I know that we played them a lot, or I think a couple times in our title-winning season. I remember a couple games there that season. But in terms of what they look like now, I had no idea what to expect. I was glad to see that Kazade got in for us. If we go back to this lineup, you can see that, well, you can sort of see that Kazade is right down in here, and I think it's obviously just because Wilf was hurt. Also, James Justin slotting in for Callum Doyle, and it looks like the back three, back four was switched, so you saw Ricardo coming into the midfield from the left side as opposed to the right, and James Justin was playing that right-sided center back. And we'll talk a little bit about him later, but he had a great game, I have to say. So, getting into the actual game, just some notes I had about the first half here, and let me just say, you know, if there's one chant that I should have put on to start this stream, it was this one. Oh man! Just want to say to everyone who feels this fixture every year, that, you know, the best way to honor our late chairman is exactly what we did, which was to win, and keep the winning going and keep the dream that he obviously had for this club alive by us back where we need to be, which is in the Premier League. So we miss you, Kunvichai. We hope we did you justice on this past Tuesday. And now we'll get back to the regularly scheduled Vardy chant behind the stream. So getting into the first half here, just some things that I noticed. First off, Sunderland pressed really well. This is probably the team that pressed us better than anybody. They seemed to know exactly where to position themselves in terms of where they were set up on the field to stifle us the most. And there were a lot of long balls happening. And I don't know if the team had an idea of how the pressing was going to be, because it seemed like they were going for long balls. It seemed like they were going for long balls early on, even before it was evident that the pressing was going to be a problem. But definitely in terms of how anyone is set up against us, especially when we're at home, pretty much everyone has come here to the King Power and set up the most boring stationary bus that you could think of, and we always broke them down. I mean, the only people we didn't beat this season were Hull, and that was just one of those days. I feel like one of those football days where nothing's going to go your way. But Sunderland were set up very well, and kudos to their manager and their players. They definitely gave us the toughest test, in my opinion, this season. Going through the little beginning of the first half, I'm just going to go over some of the notes that I had. I know this is very boring, but I have 5 pages of notes about the game. So a couple things. I noticed early on that Kazade looked different. I mean, obviously he had his haircut, which looks good, man. Looks good on you. But it seemed like that with this new haircut, he seemed to just be in the team now. It seemed like before he wasn't in the team. He was playing around the team, but he wasn't in the team. Now he's in. It seems that Enzo, with the Ndidi injury and with how Kazade obviously had to have been doing in training, seems confident to give him, some more responsibility in this team. So I'm very happy that he's back in. And early on, I could tell that he was feeling it, essentially. Yeah, it seemed like a little bit that Leicester were disjointed early from the just the pressing that Sunderland were putting on and the defense that Sunderland were playing. But surprisingly and shockingly, honestly, we scored from a corner early. In the 12th minute, James Justin was supposed to be marked by Joe Bellingham, by the way, which he doesn't look like he took his defensive duties too seriously in that moment, and was supposed to be covering JJ and just didn't get enough air. And James Justin, got to give him kudos for how high he got in the air and the power he put on that header. And it's good to see him just happy and smiling and back in the team, considering all that he's been through over the last couple years. But I got to say, out of all the times that we've scored this season, and for most teams, I feel like it's a demoralizing thing because they kind of understand that if Leicester get ahead, they're usually not going to go behind. Sunderland continued to play, and they played well. I cannot say it enough that I was thoroughly impressed and obviously distraught as a fan by how well they were covering, how well they were marking, just the chaos that they were causing to our system at times. And to their credit, when we scored, it did not deter them at all. They continued to press on and implement their game plan, which the coach worked very hard on with them. It was very obvious that they drilled and drilled and drilled to make sure that they were up for us. We created a lot of good chances, and it seems to be a pattern, which maybe is rectified by different players coming in. I don't know. But so many chances that were left out on the field. I mean, I had in my notes here that, where is it here? I can't find it. There was chances that were left out on the field. Now, I don't want to say it's as much as the last game we played against, hold on, Swansea, because that was a game where we should have won like 5 or 6-1. But it was still occurring against Sunderland, where there were chances created, and when it's getting down to the goal, right outside the box, or 20 yards within the goal, people are not making the right pass. And I'm some idiot that's just complaining about it on the internet. Obviously, these players are top quality players, and they're peak performance athletes, and they can't, can't be above everything. They're not hovering above the ground and seeing everything that we're seeing. So I'm not trying to rag on them too hard, but it's definitely something that I hope the coaching staff can address, which is they need to be seeing these chances and putting them away and making the correct decisions and just doing their best to keep their head up, because there are goals left out on the field, and if they can just see that and feel that in the moments that they're not seeing them normally and adjust, I think this team will be in a very good place. So that was basically all I had for the first half. A lot of the same notes over and over again, just decent chances, lots of pressing by Sunderland. And yeah, the first half was hard fought, and Leicester made it out in the lead. Getting into the second half, Sunderland continued their admirable pressing of Leicester. In my notes here, I have a lot of notes about Kazade and KDH, which, I wrote an article for Foxes of Leicester detailing my three standout players for this game. If you want to go to their Twitter page, Foxes of Leicester, on Twitter X, you can see some of my articles for them at LCFC Op-Eds. I picked Kazade and Dewsbury Hall as my first and second, respectively, top three players. And you can see why, because in my notes here, I just have their names written down over and over again. They were definitely influential in the game. One thing that I think is a huge benefit is how deep we are. It's good to see that Kazade can come in and essentially fill the Ndidi's shoes without too much drop in quality. Obviously, he's not, Yaya Ndidi or yet, but hopefully Kazade is paying attention to what Ndidi is doing, and he is trying to incorporate some of that into his own game with how Ndidi, performed. So just getting into a couple of these player performances here, we're going to hop over to another SofaScore tab. And so we're going to zoom in here. First off, we're going to look at Kazade. So you look at his heat map. He did spend a lot of time, it seems like, kind of on this right-hand side, which, again, if you look at Ndidi's heat match, it's almost identical. I picked him as my standout player of the game because I just thought that his improved performance was so drastic, considering what I've seen from him in other games. If you look here, he had 95% pass accuracy, which is incredible. Ground duels, aerial duels. I mean, look at him in the air right here. 7 aerial duels, 6 he won. So he definitely had a game, and he's showing, for me, why Enzo Maresca wanted him. And I wrote that in my article that, many fans probably didn't understand exactly why Enzo wanted him, and he wasn't really showing it. But this game, he definitely showed it. Let's look at Dewsbury Hall here. I mean, his map is just, again, the heat map is incredible. He's putting in so much work. He's getting so much done for Leicester on the field. So he had an assist this game. He put in the corner that JJ scored from. And let's look at his, ground duels 1, 8 out of 13. Aerial duels 2 for 2. Now it says was fouled 2. Let's be real here. Let's not avoid this topic. The ref in this game was a joke. I mean, I know we all love sports and watch them, but if there is one thing making me try to think that there are fixers in sports, it was Sunderland was holding our players game right in front of him, and he did it once. To the point that Vestergaard gets thrown down in the box, and he gives Vestergaard a yellow card because of the kerfluffle that ensued afterwards. I mean, what a joke. What a joke. The English refereeing organization needs to seriously take stock of who they're hiring and maybe do a bunch of firings, because these referees are a joke. Half of them want to make the game about them. All they want is everyone talking about them. The game is not about them. If it was about them, they would have not failed as a player and become a professional player. But instead they did fail and they became a ref. This guy just made my blood boil. I mean, our whole game plan is based on, as everyone can see, is based on our players back up against their opponent, and they wait for the ball to be fizzed in, especially Kelechi Iheanacho. But a lot of these game plan passes, these crucial passes we make, our players are coming back towards the ball, and they have a defender right on the back of them. And that defender, a lot of the time, is pulling and tugging on them. And if you go back to any of our other games and watch the games, there are many calls in those positions. When Leicester are being pressed, someone's running full speed towards the ball, so they're trying to trap it, and the defender either shoves them in the back or is tugging or pulling on them to try to keep them close to him, and the ref calls it. But in this game, this scumbag referee, and there's no other word to describe this referee but scumbag, complete scumbag, completely, absolutely abhorrent refereeing. The dude should be banned from refereeing. It was a joke. It was an absolute joke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to go off about a referee for so long, and I know we won the game, but it was a joke. And it kills me. It absolutely kills me. I don't want to continue on it, but let me just end by saying that ref needs to be out of the job. Going on to my second part of my notes, the second half, it seemed like Dewsbury Hall was running the show. And to tie back into this refereeing nonsense, he was one of the few players that, despite the obvious no calls happening left and right, he used that. He gathered that anger and that frustration and put it inside of his soul to then use as energy to play. And I think that is just showing what a leader Dewsbury Hall is, because he would have been justified to kick out at somebody. He would have been justified to go slide tackle the ref. But instead, he gathered himself up and turned that frustration into energy and production on the field. And you just can't say enough about this guy, man. Dewsbury Hall is a Cadillac in midfield, and we need to lock him down to a long-term contract. Or if that's not going to happen, make sure his contract is set in a way that, maybe we can do a 2-year extension, knowing that year prior he'll leave, and we just make sure we get top dollar that year. No matter what happens, we either have to get a lot of money for him, or we cannot let him leave until he's 27, 28. And rounding out my opinions of the second half, we still have cracks that are there to exploit. Better teams would win these games. I mean, I've seen a lot of opposing and even Premier League trolling fans say that this style will not work in the Premier League, and I agree with them. If we were playing the Premier League, we would be in the spot that Burnley are in. If you look at what happened at Burnley, they are not translating to the Premier League. And again, it's early. Maybe they turn it around, but the early signs are showing that Burnley's marauding style of play that had them piss this league last year is sinking them this year in the Premier League. So I don't know if it's they didn't get the right personnel, and maybe that's where we can improve, or we keep that style of play that we have that was obviously working in the Championship, but just upgrade the players that we're using in the Premier League to execute that. or what could happen. But if the players in this league were more clinical, we would not have won this game, in my opinion, because they had chances. And it's just a lot of these teams don't have the quality to capitalize on their chances. So this is not going to be a terribly long stream. I don't want to keep it going too wild, considering I can't do all the things I want to do. I'm not in my usual streaming setup. My final thoughts on this game, that Sunderland were easily the best opposition we've had all season. Definitely at home, but in my opinion, even of the away games that we've had, the most stubborn opposition that we faced. The only team, in my opinion, that tried to play with us. They were doing silky passing and possession of the ball, and if we take a look here, and I don't mean to keep drifting back to SofaScore here, but if we close this up and zoom out just a little bit, we look for the possession stats this game. Of course. Let's see if we can find them. There it is. Okay, see, look at that. So ball possession right here. I mean, every game we've had like a minimum of 60% possession, I feel like. I mean, I'd have to go back and check, but this has to have been the lowest amount of possession we had all season in any game. Maybe save for the Liverpool game. Well, you know, which Liverpool game, right? The preseason or the oh, why is that cutting off? That's funny. Either way, yeah, it's definitely a shocking thing that we experienced with there not being a clear dominance over Sunderland, and hopefully it does not result in more teams modeling their game plan after this. And if it does, I have every confidence in Enzo Maresca that he will absolutely break down the way that we were played against and figure out how to counter it. Because if there's one thing that I can say about this coach, is he is very tactically astute. And you can't pull off a style of play like this in the Championship, and definitely not in the Premier League, without a master of tactics. So, in summation, hard-fought Leicester win. Very emotional night for the fans. And we truck on. We truck on. The HMS Pistol League is in full flow. It's at breakneck speed, and we just need to keep supporting the team because they will lose. This will end. There's no way that they can go through the whole season and continue to win pretty much every game they play. I mean, it's 12 out of 13 games now. There's 46, 48 games in the Championship season. So we're basically a quarter of the way through the season. I mean, there's going to be a dip. Whether it's an AFCON when we lose Iheanacho and other players, or is it going to be towards the end of the season? Are we going to just start piling up injuries? Nobody knows, but we need to see what we've been blessed with and continue to support this coach, this manager in the tough times that are sure to follow. So thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. Who has watched? I just want to shout out a couple people. Beyond the 90 LCFC, my buddy Neil, great channel. If you are watching me and you're not subscribed to him, which I highly doubt, just go check his content out. And Ant's Leicester channel, great dude. I think he's part of the family, if you will. And he just had a Sunderland fan on prior to this game, a pre-match. It's very informative watch, and I would definitely subscribe to Ant's channel just to be on the pulse of things. He seems to have a lot of relationships with many fans, and just kind of the inside track on what's going on with the team, and ways to get info you might not get anywhere else. So Beyond the 90 LCFC and Ant's Leicester channel, two channels you should definitely be watching and subscribing to. And just want to thank you guys again for and all the people that have subscribed and have watched. Again, I was out of the game for about a month. I have had some stomach issues and lost a whole bunch of weight and wasn't eating, and just so glad to be back and being able to do something I love, which is talking about Leicester City Football Club. So I bid you all adieu, farewell, and good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you're watching. Stay safe in this crazy world out there. Be kind to each other, and up the boys.